Other forms of academic writing. College or scholarship application essay. Writing a college or scholarship application essay is one of the most important and therefore most stressful tasks a young person will do. The stress is compounded by the fact that unlike grades or test scores, the student has immediate control over the quality of the essay. Although there are no guarantees in the college admissions or scholarship selection process, there's a lot riding on this essay, and students feel the pressure to perform well. Introduction. Start as early as possible working on your essay, ideally as soon as you know the required topic or topics. Because it's such an important task, it's tempting to procrastinate, but you'll have a better experience and end up with a better end product if you start early and allow yourself plenty of time to revise your drafts. The admissions committee already has your grades and test scores, the quantitative part of your application. The essay is part of the more subjective, qualitative part of your application. The purpose of the essay is to show the committee who you are as a person, what you value, and what you hope to do with your life. Equally important, the application essay serves as a writing sample that the committee can use to assess not just your grasp of grammar and vocabulary, but also your ability to think critically and construct an argument. Think hard about your reader's expectations. Sometimes it helps to imagine your reader as a teacher in your school, one who doesn't know you or your work. That reader will expect a good essay, on topic, free from errors. Also bear in mind that your reader is probably reading a lot of other essays in addition to yours. Do your very best to make this experience pleasant and rewarding. Brainstorm extensively for these essays, both before you start your draft and during revision. Make sure your content is the best it can possibly be. Because this is a formal essay, you can be sure that your reader will be looking at how you've organized it. Is your structure logical? Take some time to outline your essay and don't be afraid to reorganize it once you've drafted it. Essays often evolve as you write them and may need to be re-outlined and adjusted during the revision phase. Expect to go through several drafts before you finalize your essay. Give yourself plenty of time to write, revise, and rewrite. Don't feel you failed if you don't write a perfect draft the first time through. Editing and rewriting are part of the writing process. Proofreading is a critical part of the revision process. For obvious reasons, your spelling, punctuation, and grammar must be perfect. Good luck. Do write it yourself. It's a good idea to have trusted friends, family, or advisors read your drafts and make suggestions. However, the essay must be completely your own work from start to finish. Admissions committees are very adept at detecting when someone else has written an essay for you. Do answer the question or prompt exactly as it's posed. Some schools use the Common Application, often known as the Common App, which allows students to complete a single application packet for submission to multiple schools. However, not all schools use the Common App, and some might even require additional essays. If you're applying to multiple schools, it can be a hassle to customize your essays to meet their requirements, but doing so is absolutely critical to your success. Do answer the whole question. Many questions have multiple parts. One typical question is to ask you to identify an important issue or person in your life and then to explain why. Don't neglect the why part of the question. That section is your opportunity to reflect, analyze, and show what's important to you as a potential member of the college community. Read the question carefully and be sure to answer it fully. Do observe the conventions of a formal essay. Your essay should have a clear structure with a consistent point of view, and it should be written with an eye to keeping the reader's interest. Your essay is not an email to a friend, or a friendly conversation, or a list of accomplishments. It's a formal piece of writing with an introduction and a conclusion, a clear beginning, middle, and end. Ideally, your essay should be interesting for anyone to read, not just the admissions committee. Do be yourself. The committee wants to know who you are, so your essay should employ your natural voice, albeit in the context of a formal essay. Don't try to impress by using big words, convoluted sentences, or pretentious ideas. Show the very best of who you really are. Do use humor sparingly, if at all. Many students think that a jokey tone will convey their personality better or set them apart from other applicants. Be wary of self-deprecating humor, especially if it's used to provide reasons for a less than stellar academic record. This kind of approach almost always fails. If you have concerns about your test scores or grades, address them in a straightforward, serious way. Do proofread. 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 Do not rely on spell check or grammar check programs. They sometimes make mistakes. Proofread the essay carefully yourself. Then give it to at least 2 other competent people, not your best friend who got a C in English, to proof it. It's even well worth the investment to pay a professional to proofread your final draft before you submit it. Tip: no matter what you're writing, it's always a good idea to let your first draft breathe a bit before you revise it. Try writing a draft of your essay, then leaving it alone for a full week before you look at it again. This trick will give you perspective on your essay and help you decide if the topic is one you really want to pursue. Don't let anyone else write any part of it for you. Your essay must be your work, and your work alone. The admissions committee will definitely know if your mom wrote even a little. Nothing is more obvious to an experienced reader than changes in tone, vocabulary, and attitude. When you get feedback from friends or family, don't let them rewrite those sections for you. Absorb what they've said to you and put it in your own words. Don't rehash quantitative information that appears elsewhere in your application. The admissions committee will look at your application as a whole, including data such as test scores and grades. Don't waste the precious opportunity the essay affords by restating this information, no matter how impressive it may be. Don't use fancy words where ordinary ones will do. If you mean praise, don't use laud. If you mean think, don't use cogitate. If you mean walk, don't use perambulate. You don't get extra points for extra syllables. Write in your own natural, intelligent voice. Don't indulge in excessive praise of the school you're applying to. Good schools already know how good they are. It's wise to show that you know something about the school you're applying to, but it's best to show this knowledge when you explain that you're an ideal fit for the culture and values of the school. Don't overemphasize what the university can do for you. You should show that you're aware of their offerings and emphasis, but you should put more emphasis on what you can do for the university community. Don't submit an essay with typos, misspellings, and punctuation errors. This essay is your writing sample, and it also demonstrates how much you care about your application. If you allow sloppy mistakes in your application essay, the admissions committee has every right to decide that you won't care about the work you do in college. Get several people you trust to proofread your essay before you submit it. Not like this. Why have you decided to apply to the University of Central California? My decision to apply to the University of Central California is influenced by 2 factors: my desire to remain close to my family and the excellence of the programs offered at UCC. My family has lived in California for many years. In fact, my grandmother was born here in 1916. Her mother came to California when she was 24. My grandfather was also born here. This makes us an old family by California standards. Because of this, I love California and I plan to spend my life here. The opportunity to attend a fine California institution of higher learning and in the process to stay close to my family is very important to me. The writer has an interesting premise for an essay here, but his treatment of it is vague and general. A more in-depth exploration of the topic might give insight into who he is and why he would fit well at UCC. I think I am an excellent candidate for admission to UCC. I have worked hard to prepare myself for the rigors of college life. My grade point average is 3.8, and my combined SAT scores are 1680, which I understand is considerably above the average for the typical UCC student. I feel that I am well prepared to meet the expectations of a UCC student. The applicant's grades and test scores appear in other parts of his application, so it's not necessary to mention them here. Doing so interrupts the flow of the essay and doesn't contribute to answering the question. The University of Central California offers several fine programs that interest me, in particular the program in Business and Agriculture program. My family has an agricultural background, and I hopes to follow suit in a business role rather than in farming. I believe the program in Agricultural Business Management is ideally suited to my ambitions. I had the opportunity to meet with an Ag Biz major at UCC who lauded the program highly, and I believe UCC's excellent reputation in agricultural business management would provide many career opportunities for me after graduation. The poorly constructed paragraph is the result of only partially rewriting a prior draft and failing to proofread carefully. This is the kind of mistake that's hard for a writer to catch, but easy for another eye to find. Also, this paragraph focuses too much on what the university offers the applicant and not enough on what he might bring to the community. In addition to its academic excellence, UCC offers me many other benefits. As a relatively young institution, UCC does not suffer from the population density of the other UC campuses, and there are plenty of local apartments available where students can live comfortably in near proximity to the campus. The second sentence here was clearly written by someone other than the applicant. It sounds like it was lifted directly from promotional materials for the university. As the denizen of an old California family and an aspiring expert in agricultural business management, I feel that the University of Central California would meet my needs as a student and as a future California citizen. I hope very much to have the opportunity to join the UCC community as an undergraduate student. Using flowery language can get you into trouble, especially if you don't understand it. This writer doesn't mean denizen, he means scion. The writer has missed a few punctuation errors and typos. A spell checker could have caught 2 of them. The other, I hopes, escaped the notice of the spell checker. It's important to have someone else proofread your essay before you submit it. Like this. Why have you decided to apply to the University of Central California? I have a deep commitment to the state of California and to California agriculture. California became a state in 1850. My family has been here for most of the state's history, with my great-grandmother's arrival in 1914. Most of that time, my family has been involved in agriculture. I am hoping to continue the family legacy of involvement in California agriculture, and the University of Central California seems like a perfect fit, both in its location in the Central Valley and with its excellent programs in agricultural education. This writer tells a very interesting story about his family and does a good job of relating his family background to his interest in the university. My grandparents on my mother's side came to California from Oklahoma when they lost their farm as a result of the Dust Bowl. As new Californians, they worked as agricultural laborers and eventually bought their own farm. My father is the son of citrus farmers and has worked for Sunkist for many years. My roots go very deep into the California soil, and I hope to sink them even deeper with a career in agricultural business. UCC's program in agricultural business management seems like a perfect fit given my background and my career aspirations. I was fortunate to make a campus visit where I spoke with a current agricultural business major. I attended 2 of his classes with him and discussed the program in detail, and I am convinced that this program is an ideal fit for me. I am particularly interested in focusing on labor management relations, which will be an increasingly important issue in the future. I feel that having both the labor and the management sides represented in my family, I have a unique perspective to contribute to the study of agricultural business management at UCC. I am looking forward to joining the university community and making a contribution, and I hope very much that I will be afforded the chance to do so. Rather than concentrating on what the school can do for him, the applicant focuses on the good fit between the school's offerings and his interests. He also makes a good case that he would make an interesting contribution to the university community. Also, the essay is well edited, free from grammar, punctuation, and spelling problems that might distract the reader and create a poor impression. The applicant writes in a natural voice that sounds like his own. He has obviously taken care with this essay, but he hasn't inflated it with fancy language. It is very pleasant to read, and it creates a good impression of the writer. Please tell us what you find most appealing about Columbia and why. Columbia College combines the best of both worlds, the excitement of its urban environment and the rich intellectual span of its curriculum. To be able to enjoy the influx of new ideas and opportunities that accompany a location in the country's busiest metropolis, and also be introduced to the finest of the world's literary, philosophical, and artistic traditions, is what I view as the ideal college experience. Living in the heart of Manhattan has many attractions to the aspiring college student, and myself in particular. After all, only in New York could I pursue my interest in journalism in the home of the New York Times, or take a break from studying by catching a free concert in Central Park, or even catch a national controversy a mere subway ride away. The current Park 51 initiative is a prime example. But what separates Columbia from any other undergraduate experience in the city, Fordham, NYU, or even Barnard, just across the street, is its academic centerpiece. The core ensures that each and every Columbia student graduates fully versed in the great theories and ideas of thinkers as diverse as Homer, Locke, and Virginia Woolf. It is both a factor that unifies all students and one that diversifies one's perspective and interest. An engineer is introduced to literature, just as a writer is taught contemporary science. It is this that makes Columbia truly special. A classical education in the most modern of settings. Allison Herman is a member of the Columbia College class of 2015. 3 keys to a successful college or scholarship application essay. Your college or scholarship application essay is one of the most high-stakes documents you'll ever write. These tips can help you take advantage of the great opportunity your application offers you. Answer the question asked. It's fine to recycle content from other essays, but don't submit an essay that only sort of answers the question. Take the time to revise and customize your essay so that it responds explicitly to the question. Show your personality. An essay gives you the chance to show your true self, instead of just trying to sound smart. Be genuine and sincere, and show the committee who you are as a person. Ensure your grammar, spelling, and punctuation are perfect. Submitting a sloppy essay suggests that you don't really care. Get help with proofreading so that your essay is as flawless as it can be. The best college essay is really a conversation. I'm surprised when students have trouble writing their college essays. I hear these same students in the hallways talking about everything from the answer to a complicated math problem to the great college they visited last weekend to the girl in homeroom who has just noticed them for the first time in 4 years. Students have keen powers of energetic observation about themselves and the world around them, but ask them to share any of those ideas in a college essay, and the silence speaks volumes. It's the title that scares them. To the average high school senior, essay either conjures up images of a high-stakes speech where they have to create noble images, or a tedious 5-paragraph exercise that provides modest information with little passion. If they see it as a speech, they think they aren't up to the task. If they see it as one more English assignment, they're sure they don't want to do the task. Either way, they panic. The best way to move forward is to see a college essay as a conversation. If they could, colleges would welcome you to campus and ask you questions for hours. But if they did that, no one would be admitted to college until they were 43. To accelerate the process, they want you to talk on paper. Let them get to know you by giving them a guided tour of your heart, your brain, and your life. If you succeed, they will look up from reading your essay and be surprised you aren't in the room. Indeed, they will swear the chair next to them is warm from your having sat in it since Tuesday. Patrick O'Connor is Assistant Dean of College Counseling at Cranbrook Kingswood School in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and the author of College is Yours 2.0. His website is www.collegeisyours.com. Teacher recommendations for an applicant to college. Many colleges in the United States admit students in a mechanical way, using a formula based on grades and test scores, or admit a very high percentage of those who apply. However, the most selective colleges require applicants to provide teacher recommendations, and those teacher letters can have a big effect on how that student looks to a college admissions office. As you write a letter on behalf of one of your students, think about who will read the letter and what that person is looking for. What not to do. The college already has the student's high school transcript and test scores. You don't need to repeat what they see there. The college has already asked every applicant to list extracurricular activities, achievements, and awards. You don't need to repeat what they already have from the student. In fact, if you fill sentences and paragraphs with what they know from other parts of the application, they may not read the rest of what you write. What you should do. There are at least 3 things you should include in your letter. First, establish clearly how you know the applicant. For example, Jane was my student in algebra in the 9th grade and pre-calculus in the 11th grade. I taught John American history in the honors section in 10th grade, and I have been his soccer coach throughout his high school years. Wei Hui was not a student in my class, but she is the editor of the school newspaper, which I serve as faculty advisor. Second, provide information about the student's achievements you observed firsthand and that goes beyond what appears on the transcript. It adds nothing to say, Sue got a 95 in my class. It adds a lot to say, Sue received the highest grade in my class during the year I taught her. Or, Thomas wrote an outstanding paper on Huckleberry Finn. He submitted an early draft that showed some good ideas and then took my advice about how to turn those good ideas into original and outstanding ones. Or, Mike came up with an imaginative explanation for the U.S. immigration limitations implemented in the 1920s and was able to explain and defend his views in a very heated class discussion. Or, Alaya was able to grasp the concepts in my calculus class quicker than other students. Rather than keep them to herself to get a better grade than the others, I saw her many times help explain those concepts to her less talented classmates. Colleges want to hear what you know firsthand, and they couldn't know unless you tell them. Third, provide a summary recommendation at the end. If you've done the first 2 things well, it will be persuasive when you finish a letter with, Ben is a wonderful applicant and has my strongest support. If you haven't established your credibility in steps 1 and 2, your final sentence will be ignored even if you write, Lucy will be the next Einstein. Rhea M. Coyne and Roger Laheka are partners at R&R Education Consultants. Request for recommendation. A recommendation from a teacher or professor is often required when you're applying to college, graduate or professional school, for a fellowship or scholarship, or in some cases for a job. Email is generally the most efficient way to request a recommendation, and most recommendations are submitted via the Internet. Introduction. The purpose of a request for a recommendation is to enlist the help of a teacher or professor in providing a reference for you. You should assume that your reader is busy and that your request won't be at the top of her to-do list. One of your tasks, then, is to make it as easy as possible for the reader. Brainstorm information that will help the instructor understand your goal and write a compelling letter. Let her know where you're applying, why you're interested, and why you think you're a good fit. Consider attaching your resume and the statement you've written for the application. Organize your message so that it's easy to follow. The model outline to follow provides a structure you can use for your request. Allow yourself time to go through a few drafts. The more requests you write, the better you'll get at it. Reread the draft from your reader's point of view. Have you identified yourself adequately? Have you explained the opportunity and your interest in it? Have you made a case that you're an appropriate candidate for the opportunity? Revise to be sure your message meets these criteria and is free from typos and other errors. Model outline. A request for a recommendation should make it easy for your reader to understand and comply with your request. Opening. Let your reader know right away why you're writing. Remind your reader who you are, which classes you took and when. Provide the deadline for the recommendation. Second paragraph. Explain why you are interested in the program or other opportunity you are applying for. Demonstrate a good fit between the opportunity and your interests and qualifications. Third paragraph. Give some hints about what you would like the reference letter to say. Provide information about yourself that the instructor may not have. Let her know what other references might be writing about and where she might have unique knowledge about you. Conclusion. Finish your message by thanking your instructor and offer to provide additional information about yourself. Do choose your recommenders carefully. Select instructors who are likely to remember you. Did you do well in the class? Did you take more than one class with that instructor? Did you speak to that instructor outside class? An instructor who barely remembers you is not likely to be able to give you a very specific recommendation. It's also wise to request recommendations from the most senior instructors you know. Their recommendations carry more clout than those from junior faculty. Do make your request well in advance of the deadline for the application. Give your reference plenty of time, at least 6 weeks, to write your recommendation. Do use an explicit subject line for your email. Quote, "Request for recommendation," end quote. Do ask your instructor and wait for him to say yes before you enter a name on any website that handles your application. Once you enter the name of a reference, the system will be expecting a letter from that person. If you enter a name and the instructor says no or does not respond to you, the application site will mark your application incomplete. Do treat your request as a formal letter, even if it's an email. Use a formal salutation and be polite. Unless you are on a first-name basis with the instructor, use the honorifics Mr., Ms., Doctor, or Professor. Do identify yourself. Don't assume your instructor will remember who you are. He teaches a lot of people, and he's more memorable to you than you are to him. Give him your full name, tell him which class or classes you took from him, and remind him when you were his student. Do provide a copy of your application statement or offer to send it. Do attach your resume or curriculum vitae, CV, if relevant. Do be sure to say thank you. Do proofread your message before you send it. Ask someone else to proofread it for you if you're not confident about your skills. A message with typos and other errors sets the wrong tone for this communication. Do send a follow-up thank you note. After you learn that the recommendation has been received, send a note thanking the referee for providing a reference. Tell her that you will let her know the outcome of your application, and be sure to do so, and thank her again when you get the news. Don't assume the answer is yes. It's part of an instructor's job to write recommendations for deserving students, but that doesn't mean she is obliged to write a recommendation for every student who asks. Don't use an informal tone in your request. Your message should be courteous and professional. Don't say anything in your request that suggests you're taking the answer for granted. Don't dictate what you would like said in the recommendation. A polite request is fine, and instructors often appreciate that kind of guidance, but telling the instructor what to say is rude. Don't suck up. It's fine to say you enjoyed the class or classes you took with the instructor, but don't go overboard with the flattery. Don't ask to read the letter before it's submitted. Recommendations should be strictly shielded from the applicant so the recommender can express his thoughts freely. If you have any doubts about whether this recommender will give you an enthusiastic endorsement, ask someone else. Like this. January 15th, 2013. Dear Professor Kretcher, I'm writing to ask if you would be willing to write a recommendation for me for graduate school. As you may recall, I took 2 classes from you during the 2011-2012 school year, the State and the Individual, and Parliamentary Discourse, and earned A's in both of them. The deadline for my application is March 1st, 2013. I'm applying to PhD programs in political science at Northwestern, Yale, the University of Chicago, and the University of Virginia. I've chosen these programs because they all have strong links to organizations that serve the developing world. My research interests include governance structures and sociocultural diversity, and I am hoping to pursue a career in policy with global applications. I've attached a resume, a draft of my personal statement, and the final papers I wrote in both your classes. I'm hoping that your letter might mention something about my analytical abilities. I learned a lot about analysis of evidence in your class, and I know this is an important concern in graduate school admissions. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I enjoyed your classes a lot, and I would be grateful and honored to have your recommendation. Please let me know if I can give you any further information about myself or my goals. Thank you again. Sincerely, Rosa Mendez. Dear Professor Wang, I am writing to ask if you would be willing to write a letter of recommendation for me for the Meadows Fellowship. As you recall, I spoke to you in person last week and you suggested I follow up with an email. The deadline for the fellowship application is January 27th, 2014. The Meadows Fellowship was endowed to provide support for students who wish to do research in areas related to literacy in the United States. I'm attaching a draft of the project proposal I'm submitting with my application, as well as my resume. If I win the fellowship, I plan to spend the semester studying English literacy among high school-aged Chinese immigrants in Los Angeles. The outcome of the project will be a proposal that I will submit to the LA Unified School District. I am applying because literacy has been a passion for me since I was young, and I am hoping to build my career as a literacy advocate after I graduate. As you know, I have volunteered in school and adult literacy programs for the past 3 years, and I have enjoyed discussing my activities with you. I am hoping your letter might give the committee some idea of the scope of my volunteer work and my dedication to it. Thank you very much for your consideration. Please let me know if I can provide any additional information. Sincerely, Jen Baxter. Email to teacher or professor. Maybe you've missed class and you aren't sure of the homework. Maybe you're stuck doing an assignment and need some help with it. Maybe you need an extension on a paper, or you're having trouble in the class. Or maybe you're interested in taking a teacher's class in the future and want to know if there's a syllabus or reading list you could look at. It's time to send an email to the teacher or professor. Don't hesitate to reach out. Teachers would much rather get an email from you than have you come to class unprepared or simply not turn up at all. If you treat your teachers with respect for their position and their time, they're more than willing to help. Sending an email to a teacher or professor might be the first time you will have used e-writing to communicate with someone other than friends or family. It requires a somewhat more formal approach than what you might be used to. The following guidelines can help you navigate through this experience successfully. Introduction. There are many reasons you might want to send an email to your teacher or professor. You're usually looking for additional information or for some kind of help. As you write, be sure you're very clear about your purpose and that you state it explicitly. It will be much easier for your professor to respond if she knows what you're asking for. Keep your reader in mind as you work on the message. Although your teachers and professors may be friendly, they are not your friends. They are authority figures who have power over you. They are generally very busy teaching multiple classes and may have many students. Make the message as easy as possible for your reader to process. It should be concise, clear, and courteous. Messages to teachers and professors are generally brief, so you probably don't need extensive brainstorming or organizing. Do ensure, though, that your message contains all the necessary information you want to convey. Be very alert to your tone as you draft. Your tone can be friendly, but it should also show the appropriate respect. Don't write to your teacher or professor in the same casual way you'd write to friends or family. Double-check your tone as you revise, and be sure to check for completeness. Proofread carefully for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Model outline. An email to a teacher or professor should ideally be brief. Opening. Be sure you identify yourself, let your instructor know which class you're in. Middle. State your request politely and, if necessary, give the reason or reasons for your request. Be as concise as you can while still remaining courteous. Conclusion. Finish your message by thanking your teacher or professor. Do contact your teacher or professor promptly if you need help or have a question. Waiting till the last minute suggests that you don't take the class seriously and that you expect your teacher to drop everything and help you. If you do end up writing late, acknowledge that fact and apologize for it, rather than acting as though it's no big deal that you're asking for an extension 2 hours before that paper is due. Do use a specific and courteous subject line. If you forgot that your homework assignment is due, use a subject line like, "Forgot the homework assignment," rather than, "Need assignment." Never send an email without a subject line. Do use an appropriate salutation, like, "Dear Mr. Blair," or, "Hi, Professor Rose." Don't write, "Hey, Professor," or simply launch into your message without a salutation. Do introduce yourself if you're writing for the first time. If it's early in the term or the professor has many students, your professor might not recognize your name. Let her know what class you're in. If you're just shopping for a class or looking for a syllabus, let her know that. Do be specific about what you're requesting. Do be courteous and respectful. Teachers and professors have power over you. Do keep your message brief and succinct. Do remember to say thank you if you're asking for a favor. Do sign your email with your name. Don't just stop writing. Do remember that email is permanent. A thoughtless message can come back to haunt you, so be wise and sensible. Don't call your teacher or professor by his first name, unless you've been invited to do so. College instructors should be called Professor. High school teachers should be called Mr., Ms., or Doctor as appropriate. Don't make demands. Make requests instead, and ensure they are polite requests. Instead of, "I need to know the reading assignment," try something like, "Would you please let me know what the reading assignment is?" Don't whine. If you have a problem, explain it concisely and propose a solution. Teachers and professors have heard every crazy excuse in the book. They'll respect you more if you tell them the truth without getting into too much detail and make a conscientious effort to get back on track. Don't say anything to indicate that their class is not an important priority for you. Your teachers and professors understand that you have a lot to do, but they expect you to do the work for their classes. Don't suck up. Just be courteous. Professors can spot insincerity a mile away. Don't use profanity, even in a joking or casual way. This is a formal communication, not a message to a friend. Don't use texting abbreviations like you, are, or tomorrow when you're writing to your teachers. Don't use emoticons. Write in real English. Don't send unexpected attachments. If you have to miss class the day an assignment is due, ask your professor in advance if you may email the assignment to her. Don't just assume she's going to print out your paper if you don't make it to class. Don't be surprised if your professor asks you to come to office hours to discuss the issue you've raised in your email. Face-to-face communication is often more effective, and you'll probably get a more complete and satisfying answer if you're able to talk to your professor in person. Not like this. I missed class this week. Who is this student? She never identifies herself or mentions which class she's in. Would you please send me the assignment? Assignment is misspelled. A spell checker would have told the writer it was misspelled, but she seems to have been in too much of a rush to notice that red squiggly line. Notice also the sentence isn't properly punctuated. It's a question, so it should end with a question mark. Also, I'm not sure when it's due. This sentence is not a question, but it's punctuated as one. Thank you! 10 exclamation points. Topping off this festival of bad punctuation is this string of exclamation points. Though you may do it with your friends all the time, it's never all right to use multiple exclamation points in formal writing. Like this. Hi, Professor Post. I'm enrolled in your Thursday Shakespeare course, English 533. Unfortunately, I had to miss class yesterday because I had a migraine headache. Could you please let me know what the assignment is and when it's due? Ariel explains her absence and requests the assignment courteously. I'll get caught up by next week. Thanks for your help! 1 exclamation point. She remembers to thank the professor and punctuates the sentence correctly. Ariel Booth. This student uses the appropriate salutation and signature. Ariel is smart to remind Professor Post who she is. Not like this. Dear Professor Saltzman, I would like to get an extension on my paper for your class. I had 3 midterms this week in other classes, including chemistry and bio, and I just couldn't get around to the paper. David is making a request, but it sounds more like a demand. He's probably alienated Professor Saltzman already. Just couldn't get around to the paper? Oops. Clearly David has a lot to juggle, but there's a more diplomatic way to make this point. The Chem one was 60% of our grade, if you can believe it. I slept a total of 6 hours over 3 nights before those exams. I am hoping to declare a pre-med major, so getting good grades in those classes is totally critical. This section combines whining with a description of why Professor Saltzman's class is not important to David. I really enjoy your class. You're, spelled Y-O-U-R, a superlative teacher, and I really appreciate the opportunity to take the class with you. Perhaps, sensing that he has made a mistake, David tries sucking up to Professor Saltzman. He also misspells Y-O-U''re. If I were Professor Saltzman, I wouldn't go out of my way to help this student. Thank you very much for your consideration. Sincerely, David Cooper. The end of this email sounds rather wooden and businesslike, not in keeping with the rest of the message. Worse, though, David has forgotten why he's writing and what he's asking for. He wants an extension on his paper? Till when? He needs to wrap up the message with some specifics. Like this. Dear Professor Saltzman, could I possibly get an extension on my paper for your Asian history class? I'm taking a very heavy load of classes this term, and I had a lot of deadlines that turned out to be too much for me to manage. In this version, David makes a polite request for the extension and also reminds Professor Saltzman which class he's in. I understand your policy is not to accept late papers, but I am wondering if you would make an exception in this case. David explains the problem of his heavy workload without whining and without making Professor Saltzman feel that the science classes are a more important priority. He takes responsibility for not being able to handle the competing priorities, and he proposes a way to fix the problem. I really enjoy your class, and I'd appreciate the chance to get back on track. David lets Professor Saltzman know that he values the class and links that to an appeal for the extension to get caught up. Would it be all right with you if I handed the paper in on Monday the 27th? Thank you very much. Sincerely, David Cooper. David proposes a specific date for the extension. He demonstrates that he is well organized, aware of the professor's policy on lateness, and working conscientiously to keep up with the class. Appealing a grade. Appealing a grade through email is a tricky proposition. Before you write, you should weigh the consequences carefully. Be aware that if you ask your instructor to recalculate your grade, the grade might actually go down rather than up. If you decide to move ahead, use these guidelines to help you write a courteous email to your instructor. Do understand why you feel the way you do. Do you think your instructor has made an error in calculating your grade? Can you point to specific reasons your grade should have been higher? Or are you simply feeling unappreciated and misunderstood? If it's the last, think hard about whether you should write, and be careful not to use an aggrieved tone in your message. Do be extra polite in your message. An arrogant or brusque tone can be offensive. Do suppress your emotions. You may feel very angry or hurt, but don't share your personal feelings with your instructor. Keep your message businesslike and professional. Do explain exactly why you're puzzled or confused. Be specific. Do you understand the basis for grading in the class and what percentage of your final grade each assignment accounts for? Do ask to see your final paper or final exam if you haven't seen it yet. If you haven't seen your grade on your final piece of work for the class, ask the instructor to return it to you. It might have had a large impact on your overall course grade. Do make an explicit request for the instructor to recalculate your grade. Vague and indirect expressions like, "I feel I should have done better," may sound like whining. Don't use the word mistake. Rather than accusing your instructor of making an error, express puzzlement or confusion over the grade. Don't talk about how hard you worked in the class. Instructors will sometimes give students a slightly higher grade for making a strong effort, but they are in no way obliged to do so. Also, consider the possibility that your instructor might already have factored your effort into your final grade. Like this. Dear Professor Layton, I was a student in your Biology 5 class that met Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock last term. I really enjoyed the class and I learned a lot. I've just received my grades and I'm confused about my final grade for this class. Maybe my calculations are wrong, but I thought based on my labs and exams, I had an A- going into the final. I'm just puzzled about how my final grade could have dropped so much. I'd be very grateful if you would recalculate my grade and help me understand it. Thank you for your help. I really appreciate it. Sincerely, John Prusner. Academic Resume. High school or college students sometimes find they need a resume for a job application, a scholarship application, or another use. Even if you have little or no experience in paying jobs, or if your work experience is not relevant to your current application, you can still create an impressive resume by including information about academics, honors, and memberships, as well as your work experience and volunteer experience. Introduction. An academic resume may be used for several purposes, including applications for scholarships, internships, and employment. Regardless of the reason for the resume, you can safely assume that your reader is someone who is busy and is reading through many similar resumes. Make his job as easy as possible by making the resume easy to scan and conforming to formatting conventions. Think about your reader's expectations in the context of your purpose. What might a college admissions officer or potential employer be looking for in a resume? Brainstorm extensively about your activities and experiences. Give yourself plenty of time to make lists of your experiences and achievements. Talk with your parents and friends to get ideas. They may remember things you don't. You'll probably find that you have a lot more to say than you initially thought. Refer to the upcoming section, What to Include in Your Resume, to get started brainstorming. Once you've chosen what to include, organize your resume according to accepted formatting conventions. A resume is no place to show creativity. The examples to follow provide models you can adapt for your own use. Expect to go through several drafts of the resume before you finalize it. Your resume should be no longer than 1 page, and your first draft will likely be too long. Allow yourself time to edit and trim the resume. You may also find that working on the resume jogs your memory, so you may come up with additional content. As you revise, focus not just on getting the resume down to 1 page, but also on including the most important information about yourself. You'll have to be selective. Proofread carefully for errors in grammar and punctuation and for typos. Give your draft to at least one other person and ask him to proofread it carefully. Errors on resumes create a very bad impression, so be sure yours is completely free from them. What to include in your resume. High school and college students have slightly different needs when it comes to resume content. Note the 2 examples to follow for an illustration and choose accordingly. GPA, major, expected graduation date, coursework relevant to the opportunity you're applying for, independent study projects, senior thesis, academic awards, Dean's List honor roll, and so on. Work experience. Extracurricular activities like clubs, societies, volunteer work, community service. Leadership positions. Sports. Foreign language skills indicate your level of competency. Significant travel experience. Special computer skills. Musical instruments you play. Interests and hobbies. Do keep your purpose in mind. As you collect information and select which pieces to use, keep in mind what the resume is for and let that guide your choice of details. Do work with your parents and your counselor. They have experience with resumes and can help you jog your memory about experiences that you might have forgotten or might think are not important. Do use a professional format for your resume. Note the samples to follow for guidance. Do keep your formatting clean and consistent, and use 1-inch margins all around. Do be sure all your contact information is accurate and professional. If your email address is something like ilovezombies@puffball.org, create a new account that includes your name to use for this purpose. Be sure the message on your voicemail is businesslike and serious. Do be willing to tailor your resume according to the school or job you're applying for. For instance, if you know the school you're applying to has a strong core curriculum, be sure to note your reading of classical literature. If you're applying to work at an international aid agency, mention all your foreign language skills. Do use strong action verbs to describe your activities. Refer to the upcoming section, Action Verbs for Resumes. Don't go over 1 page in length. The people who will review your resume are busy and probably reviewing stacks of resumes. Make their lives easier by being concise. One that's too long looks sloppy and can cause resentment. Don't clutter your resume with lots of different fonts and creative formatting. Use no more than 2 fonts and keep your margins consistent at 1 inch on all sides. Your resume should attract attention because of its content, not because of creative formatting. Don't embellish or fudge on your resume. Tell the truth. Resumes can easily be fact-checked. Don't ever send your resume out without carefully checking for errors and typos. A sloppy resume creates a bad impression. Like this. High school academic resume. The following is bold-faced, center-aligned. Cameron Shapiro. Next line, 2556 Ginger Tree Lane. Next line, Santa Lucia, California, 93454. Next line, 555-111-9999. Next line, Cameron Shapiro at CIHS.org. Aligned to the left margin and in boldface, personal data. Directly under that, and not bold-faced, date of birth. First tab alignment, January 15th, 1995. Back to left margin, place of birth. First tab alignment, Santa Lucia, California. Double space. Left tab alignment, boldface. Education. Directly under that, not boldface, high school. First tab alignment, Channel Islands High School. Directly beneath that, 1673 Bay Street. Directly beneath that, Santa Lucia, California, 93454. Back to left alignment. GPA/class rank. First tab alignment, 3.85/37 out of 621 seniors. Back to left margin. SAT scores. First tab alignment. 620 writing, 740 math, 620 critical reading. Back to left margin. AP scores. First tab alignment. Biology, 5. Directly beneath that, United States history, 4. Directly beneath that, English language and composition, 4. Back to left margin. Grade 12. Double space. Left margin and boldface, honors and awards. Directly beneath that, Ziegler Award for AP Biology, 2012. Directly below that, Honor Roll, 2010 to 2012. Directly below that, CIHS Student of the Month, 2011. Double space, left margin and boldface, school activities. Directly below that, in italics, The Islander, student newspaper, 2011 to 2013. Below that, and indented 5 spaces, features editor, 2012. Below that, and back to the left margin, Science Club, 2010 to 2013. Below that, Finance Club, 2011 to 2012. Double space, left margin and boldface, work experiences. Directly below that, The Gap, May to August 2012. Below that and indented 5 spaces, Associate, Below that, and left margin aligned, Martin Fisheries, May to August 2011. Below that, and indented 5 spaces, Assistant. Double space. Left margin and boldface, Community Service Activities. Directly below that, United Way Campaign, 2011 to 2012. Directly below that, Islander Outreach Volunteer, 2010 to 2011. Directly below that, Soup Kitchen Volunteer, 2010. Double space. Boldface. Special Interests. Directly next to that, Reading, Swimming, Marine Biology. College Academic Resume. Center aligned, in boldface, Lisa Watson. Directly below that, not in boldface, 678 Dutton Hall. Directly below that, Ames, Rhode Island, 02804. Directly below that, LMW 2334 at branston.edu. Directly below that, 617-788-0985. Double space, and over to the left margin alignment. In all caps, Objective. Directly below that, an entry-level position in book or magazine publishing. Double space. All caps, Education. Directly below that, and in boldface, Branston College. Not in boldface, Ames, Rhode Island. Directly below that, Bachelor of Arts in English, expected June 2013. GPA 3.8/4.0. Directly below that, Dean's List, Fall 2009 to present. Saltzman Prize, 2010. Directly below that, in italics, Senior Thesis. Quote, The Book Publishing Industry in 19th Century New England. End quote. Double space. In all caps, Relevant Experience. Directly below that, and in boldface, Gleason Publishing. Not in boldface, Boston, Massachusetts, Summers, 2011 and 2012. Below that, and indented 5 spaces, in italics, Intern. Directly below that, bullet point, Fact-checked and proved non-fiction manuscripts. Directly below that, bullet point, Conducted ad hoc research for selected authors. Directly below that, bullet point, Participated in event planning for book launches and publicity events. Directly below that, bullet point, Attended editorial meetings. Double space, and back to left margin alignment. In boldface, Branston B. Not in boldface, Ames, Rhode Island. 9/2011 to present. Below that, and indented 5 spaces, and in italics, News Editor. Directly beneath that, bullet point, Edit copy and assist with layout and production for weekly college newspaper. Directly below that, bullet point, Gather college-related news events through interviews with professors, students, and administrators. Directly below that, bullet point, Recruit and supervise student reporters. Directly below that, bullet point, Assist in selling advertising space to local merchants. Double space, back to left margin alignment. In all caps, Additional experience. Directly below that, in boldface, Branston College Learning Center. Not in boldface, Ames, Rhode Island. 9/2010 to 6/2011. Below that, and indented 5 spaces and in italics, Tutor. Directly below that, bullet point. Assisted students with writing papers and conducting research. Directly below that, bullet point. Designed and taught mini-sessions on grammar, punctuation, and presentation skills. Doublespace. Back to left margin alignment. In all caps. Activities. Directly below that, and in boldface, Ames Community Center. Not in boldface, Ames, Rhode Island. 6/2010 to present. Below that, and indented 5 spaces, and in italics, volunteer. Directly below that, bullet point. Teach reading skills to adults in an after-work literacy program. Directly below that, bullet point. Tutor high school students in writing skills. Directly below that, bullet point. Write catalog copy and copy for community email blasts and advertisements. Doublespace. Back to left margin alignment. In boldface, Chinatown Community Outreach. Not in boldface, Boston, Massachusetts, summers 2009 and 2010. Below that, and indented 5 spaces, and in italics, volunteer assistant teacher. Directly below that, bullet point. Assisted in teaching weekly English language classes to recent immigrants from Greater China. Doublespace. Back to left margin alignment. In all caps, language skills. Directly below that, Spanish, intermediate, French, basic, Mandarin, basic. Doublespace. In all caps, computer skills. Directly below that, proficient in Microsoft Office, some HTML and XML. Doublespace. In boldface, references available on request.